SMS. Cool. Everybody, guys, we are being recorded. I see that Skype tells me I need to say that. So, cool. So that's a capture type. It's somebody has to have a username and password in order to log into the app to start that type of process. Okay. The second type that we've got is what we call a feedback type. This is where we've got a QR code or an SMS short code where somebody does not need to have an application in order to start interacting with someone. What happens here is that a link is generated. That link can either be shared via QR code or via SMS. You could also send that link via an email. And what that link does is it obviously provides somebody access to a web browser. That web browser we refer to as a .mobi because it can be displayed on a mobile cell phone as well. And that person can then fill out that pre-established form, sending that through into the app itself. So in other words, the person that initiates this process does not need to have an app or a username and password. For all intents and purposes, they don't even need to know that an app exists in that aspect. Okay, so what we're going to be looking at today, we will be looking at two capture type processes where there is the initial point of information gathering takes place within the app itself. And we will be looking at one QR code type process where somebody can log a facility issue. Okay, cool guys, and then let's jump off here then. So I'd like to just draw everybody's attention to the PDF that's on screen right now. This is the security company's app ecosystem. And this entire graph that you see here encompasses 3 different activities as a whole. You'll see here that from this picture, we've got all the users and things from the top there. So if anybody that would like to log into this demo after the session, you're more than welcome to. You'll see that all the information is at the top left here with regards to usernames and passwords itself. Okay. Then I just want to give you guys an idea of the different parties or the individuals that are at play in this ecosystem itself. So starting off the bat, we've got Greg. Greg is the owner of this company and therefore has access to everything. He can see anybody and everything that happens within his company. He's privy to all reports and can communicate with anybody that he'd like to. He does not necessarily have to do that, but he can jump in where he feels that he's needed or he can get involved. Okay. We've also got a gentleman by the name of Rakesh. He's going to be our security manager in this aspect. We've got a Mohammed. Mohammed is a supplier. However, in this case, the supplier has an app on their side. When a company becomes a client of Magnitude, that does not mean that they can't give their clients apps as well, if it makes logical sense from that aspect. The next person down is Sarah. Sarah is the safety officer. She's responsible for doing things like audits and inspections at the grounds. And then she's responsible to Temba, because when she does a safety audit, that needs to go through to the factory manager because he's the one that needs to see any kind of issues and things that took place in that audit itself. Okay. Those are the first 2 types of activities. The third one down is a maintenance logging issue type activity. So you'll see that there's a QR code at the top here. And what happens is that anybody can come along, whether they be a client of this business or if they are an employee themselves, they can just scan that code and fill out a quick form that just explains any kind of facility issues that there are. What happens is that then gets sent through to Bongi and John. And then what happens from that is that Bongi then allocates that to John as the maintenance technician to then go and carry out that job itself. Okay. Cool. So guys, what we're going to be looking at first then is we're going to be looking at this one down here, this yellow one, between Sarah and Temba. So to give you an idea, Sarah, who's a safety officer, she captures a safety inspection and notes any areas that need attending to. This factory report will then get sent through to Temba, who is the factory manager, who must then act on any of these issues And once he's done so, we'll then file a corresponding report to say what has been done to action these reports. Okay, so let's go through that one then. To give you guys an idea, I've obviously got one screen to work with that you guys are seeing on your side, and I wanted to make it as less complicated as possible. So you'll notice that I've got at the bottom left here is Opera and Google Chrome. Okay, in Opera here, I'm logged in as Sarah, and if we remember from the diagram, Sarah is our safety officer. Okay, in Google Chrome, I'm logged in as Temba. Okay, sorry, what was Mohammed? I'll log in as Temba then. There we go. Logged in as Temba on Google Chrome and Sarah on this side, just so that these two can then interact with each other, and I can show you guys how that plays a role on this side. Please keep in mind that this entire demonstration is done on a desktop computer. That in no way means that this has to take place on a computer itself. That can definitely, we support Android, iOS, as well as desktop. This entire process can be taken on a mobile device as well. Okay, cool. Then the first thing that we're looking at is OHS audit. So just like this document said here, that Sarah, who's the safety officer, needs to complete an audit. Let's say every Tuesday, she does an audit on the factory itself. So what she'll do in order to do this, she'll come here to her home page. On her home page, there's a couple of different things that you guys are seeing here. Number one, there'll be the company's logo at the top left here. Then what you'll see is you'll see different activity tabs on that page itself. So these little blocks here are individual activities, okay? So if you look at this, I'm looking at a total of 4 activities across the board. We're going to be looking at these top 3 today, okay? At the top right, you'll notice that there's a little bell with 125 next to it. What this indicates to me is that there's 125 notifications for Sarah. All these notifications, this is everything that Sarah is privy to. So from communications just being chats that are sent to Sarah, to out forms, as well as to in forms. So it's everything, it's every notification that is available to Sarah herself. Okay, everything that she's privy to. So in the example that we've got here, if you take somebody like Greg has got a much wider view across the company. So his notifications will be different to Temba's, which will be different to Sarah's, which will be different to Mohammed's. Okay. This little button here, you won't have this on your cell phone there. It'll be at the bottom on your cell phone. But over here, this is just our little home button. If you click this button, no matter where you are, you will get taken back to the page that we are looking at right now. This is your home screen where all of your activities sit. Okay. If you go to the top right, we've got our settings bar. On the cell phone, all you need to do is you just swipe to the right, and you'll see that it'll then move over to another page, which is your settings page. Okay. The first little tab here just tells us who you logged in as. So it'll just give you an idea of who it is. As you can see with my Google Chrome, it really helps me knowing that I was logged in as Mohammed and not Temba. If you would like to change your password, and I would obviously highly recommend that anybody that does get given a password in the beginning, if it's 1234, to go in and change their password. Notifications, what this allows you to do is you can turn notifications off for specific activities. So if you click that, you'll see you get the ability, you don't just turn them off as a whole. So where most apps on your cell phone will either allow that app to send a notification or to not send a notification, what Magnitude does is we've narrowed it down to allow people to turn off specific notifications for specific activities. Okay. The next one down is last days. And what I'd like to show you guys on how this works is if I'm looking at, say, my OHS audit, let's look at my security management because there's some movement there. If I click on security management activity, you'll see what I get here is what we call our heartbeat for this activity. So you'll see it's the amount of out forms versus the amount of forms coming back in. And what this shows is over a period of 30 days, so the last 30 days. if I go to my settings and I would like to change that to say 1 day, all I got to do, just switch it to that, hit submit, and what that will do is it will now change these numbers here. And as you can see, my graph has now disappeared because I haven't had any kind of audits done today. So no outs and no ins with no graph. If I then just switch it back to this, and you'll see then I'll obviously get my graph back with my numbers. Keep in mind that this last days is specific to this user. So if Sarah turns her last days to 1, Themba's still remains 30. 30 is the default, by the way. It's a month. So it allows that person to customize their own view and manage it themselves on their side. Okay. The next one down is default contact. What default contact does is it allows for an activity to auto-lock to a particular individual. You can always change this at a later stage, but what this does is it just allows for one less step in this process as a whole. So just as an example, I'm going to bring it back to what we're doing now so that it's real. When Sarah completes a OHS safety audit, that audit gets sent through to Themba every single time. There is no point in Sarah going to OHS audit and then searching for Themba when she does this. And I'm going to show you what I mean by this as an example. So if Sarah goes OHS audit, and I will re-walk through this with you guys, you'll see that when she clicks here, it automatically locks to Themba at the top here, okay? As opposed to, if I go to my default contacts, and I go to my activities, if I go to my OHS audit, and I remove Themba as a default contact lock, what you'll do is you'll notice here, the same process, except there's an extra step now, which is now asking me to look for a contact. If I now go, I must now search for Themba and select him. So it's just an unnecessary step if it can be avoided. We don't need to do that. So in order to set a default contact, it's quite simple. All you have to do, you just go to your settings, go down to default contact, select activities, go down to the activity that you're looking for, and then now you'll see this is that select contact that we got. I just search for Themba. I can assign this to everybody if I'd like. There, and then just save. And what this will do is, like I've said, this will just lock this particular activity so that it always goes through to Themba. Another example of this, just to bring us out of that, is if we use our Real Magnitude Go Mobiles app ecosystem, if anybody's logging a technical issue, it's always going through to the development team. So you'll see that your technical issues, for example, is always locked to that group of guys. Okay. The next one down is clear alerts. What this allows you to do is you'll see that all there's 125 as well as this one chat over here that I've got. If I clear these alerts, it'll just get rid of all of those alerts. We have also got a feature in our system where it auto saves. We don't want a case where somebody is filling out a form. So let's use this audit one as an example. Let's say that somebody is doing an audit and that audit takes them half an hour to complete it. And 15 minutes in, their cell phone battery dies, or they get a phone call and get completely distracted. The last thing that we want to do is for that person to have to go and fill that form out from scratch again. So what we've got in our system is we've got an automatic save feature that is defaulted to every 1 minute. And what happens is as you're filling out a form, that form will default save to your drafts every minute, and it'll update it every minute until you then send that form off or submit the form thereof. You can obviously disable this feature because we have to have that ability there, because obviously drafting saves to the person's device memory. And if they're not like that, they can always offer that ability to turn it off. We've got obviously you guys joining us from across the globe there, so you'll obviously know that we've got English and Spanish as far as languages within our app. So you could just obviously switch that on and off. The last one down is obviously just log out. So that's how you just log out of this app. Okay. Then what we're looking at here, this is, like I've said, this is our home screen. It's what we're looking at, all of our different activities in one page. If we just take this middle one, security management, as an example, We've got our activity name as well as an image here for it. We then have a little chat bubble, and this tells you how many chats this person, being Sarah, has waiting for her or that is unread within security management. So you'll notice just based on that, that if I were to be Sarah in this case, I would know that I've got no chats here and I've only got a chat for some facility issues. If I then click on this little chat box, you'll see that it brings up who it was, Mohammed, for facility issues, and he was asking for this to please be resolved. Okay. And I would like to show you, if you guys can just take note, that there's a little speech bubble here and that there's one notification in total, right? If I take that as a different means and I click on my notifications up top here, where I've got 125, you'll see that there's a lot of different other notifications here that are now present. Anything from a chat to an in form or an out form. You can see that the ones that look like this are the ones that are not read yet, and that's hence where my 125 comes from. And from this, you can just scroll through your notifications if you were trying to look for something specific from here. We've also got a search feature from this aspect, where you can then search for a specific keyword in a notification that you might have found or missed for that matter. What we've also offered is the ability to do is to flag things. So what you can do now is, let's say that this chat here, all you've got to do, you just hit that little flag button, and what it'll do is it'll flag that, and that's the corresponding form that got linked with that chat. You can think of this flag system exactly the same as flagging in an email would work. It's just bringing your attention to that because it might be needing to be dealt with at a later stage. Okay. I'm going to start off now with, oh, sorry guys, one other thing I wanted to touch on was this unresolved bit here. This unresolved and then the number that corresponds next to that. Without trying to sound too obvious, what that is it's a total count of how many unresolved forms are currently sitting in this activity. Keeping in mind that that number is only a representation of how much access this user has at the end of the day. I'm still logged in here as Sarah. So Sarah might have a different number to, say, somebody like Greg. It would depend on perhaps how big the business was and also depending upon the rights that Sarah gets given versus somebody like Greg. Okay. I'm going to start off this OHS audit. So in order to start any type of activity, and I will give you guys an idea of the type of activity based on what I've said in the very beginning of our session, being that we've got a capture type and a feedback type. This one that we're doing now, because the initial point of information gathering is taking place within the app itself. In other words, Sarah had to have a username and password in order to log in. This is a capture type process that we're going to be going through, okay? Or what we like to refer to as an in-app initiator process. Cool. So all I do is I click on that little symbol in the middle. I then get presented with my heartbeat of this activity. So starting from left to right, you'll see that the pending to respond, I currently have 0. What this indicates to me is how many forms this person is the direct respondent for. How many forms they are responsible for dealing with, okay? This again is that same symbol there, where it's how many chats we've got available. And this over here is the unresolved count. So it's just an indication similar to those two, okay? I've told you guys what this is. Then down at the bottom here, these, what you can see are 5 different buttons, are what we refer to as our modules, okay? The 3 main modules are this one, and this one. The first one being the capture module, the second one being the feedback module, the third is the analysis module, and the other 2 are permanent modules that stay on the app no matter what. This is obviously for drafts and for database reference. The database reference module will not be available on a mobile device. It is only available on a desktop. And the reason being is that this links with Excel. Okay. So in order to start a new process here, I need to click on the new audit. In other words, the capture module in this case to start this process. All I do is I click there. I then get presented with what we call establishments. Okay. What establishments allow us to do is it allows us to create one activity called OHS audit and break that activity up into lots of different areas. So in this particular case, it's their different factories that they've got throughout the country. So they might have 12 here, they might have only 2. Keeping in mind that you cannot just break this up, you cannot break an activity up into as many establishments as you want. If we start to encroach on the 500,000 maybe range of establishments, what's going to end up happening is that the system is going to have too much data in it, too much data moving around, and the people using the app, it's going to be very, very slow just to load everything for obvious reasons. Okay, so what would happen here is that Sarah's obviously got access to both of these two. So it doesn't matter which one I'm for the sake of this demo, but I'm going to say the Santon factory, for example. And like I said just now, you'll notice here that what's happened is that Temba, and if we just jump back to this PDF, Temba, who's our factory manager, is the direct respondent on this form. Okay, and I would like to now take the opportunity to just discuss what I mean by direct respondent. So what Magnitude has got in their system, in our system, is we've got what we refer to as an initiator and a direct respondent, as well as a third party. The two main ones that I would like to focus on are initiator and direct respondent. An initiator is somebody that initiates or starts the process off. Whenever a process is done, there needs to be a receiving party on the other side of that. Even if it matters, even if that means that the initiator is the same person as the direct respondent, that is fine. It still means that there is a corresponding person that needs to respond back into this. So just as an example here with what we're looking at right now, the initiator in this process that we're going through is Sarah. Why? Because she's the one that starts the process off. The direct respondent in this case is Temba, because Temba's been the one that needs to now fix any issues that I might have found during this audit itself. And because Temba's the direct respondent, Temba is the person that I select at the top here. Okay? One thing to please note, guys, is that the reason that Temba is who he is because of his email address itself. The email address is actually what makes Temba his unique identifier. When you're going to be sending this through to him, you've got to double check these sort of details. It would be like sending off an email to anybody. You would need to make sure that you've actually put that little A in there, or if you've missed it, for example. Okay. So that's the direct respondent at the top. You can always get the opportunity here where it says previous form to look at the previous form that was sent out. Okay. In the sake of this demonstration, I'm not going to do that because it'll be a bit too confusing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go down now and slowly just complete this audit as if I was Sarah. Okay. The exit signing, so there is. I'm going to say that there's not at least 2 exits. And one thing to note here, guys, is that you'll see that there's a little red asterisk next to some of these questions. What that indicates is that these questions are mandatory and need to be filled out. I'm going to say that the emergency lights do not work. Put them outwards. You can attach pictures here if you'd like. And what you'll see, it'll just pop in at the bottom there. So, and this form is completely customizable to depending on what the client would like. Fire extinguishers. So there, yes, there are. And if there's 3, note that they're not clearly marked, for example. And like I say, guys, at the end of the day, what we do is we provide a field or a question, and we provide a suitable way at which that person can answer that field or question. So as an example, this very first one here, you'll see is just a normal radio button, so the person can either select yes or no. You could add a number of other options here, no problem, where they would only still be able to select one option. Where the next one down is just a normal text box. You'll see that you can just write as much as you want in here. Okay, these here are just normal graphic images. Okay, let me fill this out then. Cool. And then the last thing down here, I'd just like to note on is this block that you're seeing here. As you can see, so far down this form, we haven't had any block that looks like this yet. And I'm just going to go up to the top to give you an idea. So you'll notice that this is a blue block that runs from there all the way to the bottom, and that there's an encompassive total of 4 questions that fall into this block itself, from issue title to description to attachments and to comments themselves. What this block is this is a repetitive field. What it allows us to do, and if you read this thing here, is you add this question in and you hit add more. What that'll do is it'll duplicate this entire block to add another issue in. So let's take this as an example. So there's a perfect one there. Let's say that the front door is not locking. Okay. Okay. You could then obviously provide a picture of that, and if you'd like any comments. But now I've found as well that there's perhaps a leaking pipe at the back door. Now, I don't want to put it in here because that's difficult for the person that's dealing with this to compartmentalize their work. So what I can do is if I just hit this add more button, what you notice will happen is I get given a blank block with the exact same set of questions that I've just had previously above. And you'll see that this one stays as is. And now what I can do is I can log another one. So leaking pipe. Always attach a picture again. And from there, I can go down. So once this is done, all I've got to do then is just hit submit. If I wasn't finished with this form, I could always save it to my drafts. Please keep in mind that drafts are saved to a device specifically. It is not saved to the cloud. So if you log in with your cell phone and you save a form to drafts on your phone, you can't then log in on your desktop and expect the draft to be there because that draft saves to the cell phone itself. Cool. So then all I've got to do is hit submit notify. In doing so, you'll see that here is my report that just went out, 27th of June at 4:39. And it is from Sarah to Temba. And I only got a score of 65%, which is below my benchmark. So therefore, I get a red face to show that there's a negative outcome to this form. A couple of other things to note of what we're looking at here is you'll notice that this form is bold, that these things are bold here, as well as I've got one single standalone tick here. If I then click on this form, what will happen is I will then be received 2 ticks, and these bottom sections here will be unbolded. And I'll show you what I mean. So if I click on it and then go back, you'll see now that these are no longer bold and that I now have 2 ticks as an option that's available here to me. Okay, a couple of things that we can look at as well. This is the reference number for this form specifically itself. This is the PI, or the performance index, that this form scored, so 65%. And what this is based on is that there are questions within these forms that have got beneficial and negative marking towards them. So if I'd selected all the beneficial ones, I would obviously receive 100%, and vice versa would receive a 0%. Okay. The next little symbol here is a little block with an arrow leaving it. You might have noticed that that was present in our notification list there. What that indicates to us is an out form, O-U-T, out form. This is a form that has been captured in the app and has left the app, therefore leaving it going out. Okay. The date and time that this form was sent, as well as the user, the initiator, and the direct respondent on that form themselves. This that we're looking at here is what we refer to as our summary feedback, or our feedback list. We can choose specific information that we would like to display on this list versus information that we would like to display in our detailed section of this list. As you can see, it's obviously a lot more information. You can't display things like pictures and images over here that you need to display in your list itself. Okay. The next little button here is what you'll see is this little email symbol with 2 arrows going around in a circle. Just before we go on, guys, I just want to make sure this is still recording. Okay, cool. We've got this little email symbol here at the top with these little arrows going around in it. What this means is what happens here is I can resend this to Temba. So if I had emails or SMSs leaving our system, I could resend this without having to capture a new form. I could just click this button and just resend this form off. Okay, these two ticks here, if I click these two ticks, what will happen is my form will resolve itself. I can always unresolve the form. All I need to do is just click the two ticks again. I just want to show you the difference in colors that we've got just dependent upon what has happened. So what you'll notice here is that this little block here with the three little dots is currently gray. There's three different color options that this block can have in total, and I will go through those with you guys now. If I click on these three little dots, I get a couple little options here, from snapshot to transfer to copy to flag. Snapshot, what it does is it provides me a snapshot of all the areas that have got weightings that provided this 65% overall count on how I achieved it. So what it's nice to do is you could always use this as a way to look at why this form scored so badly. So I can see here that it's because of the lights, the fact that there's not two exits, and that there's no first aid stocked, and that the wiring got a bad score as well. What this allows you to do is just get a quick overview of how this particular one form has scored. Okay. You'll notice that another thing here is this blue block at the bottom here that says no action and has that speech bubble that we've seen a couple times so far today. If I click on this, what it allows me to do is it allows me to communicate with anybody that is privy to this form. All I need to do is hit @ and I can speak to anybody that's in here. So let's say, for example, that I want to chat to Temba and tell him that the leaking pipe is wasting water. All I would do is I'd send that through. What would happen then is this is Temba's side over here. Temba will receive an extra notification on this side. Click on it, there's the one. Sarah saying to Temba, at Temba, leaking pipe is wasting water. Now, myself as Temba, I have no idea what she's talking about on this front. So if I click on it, you can see I've got the details here, but I still don't know what's going on. All I would need to do is click out. And here I've got my details of my form. I can scroll through this, and I know that she's talking about a leaking pipe. There it is there. The leaking pipe, and it's at the back door. He has a picture of it, so I know where it is and how to go and fix it from that perspective. Okay, I'm going to jump back to Sarah now. I want to then show you guys how that gray form will now have changed to a yellow one. And you'll see that I've now got yellow surrounding these three little dots. What that indicates to me is that some kind of actions have taken place within the chat of this form itself. Okay, what I can do is if I click these two little ticks, what will end up happening is I will resolve this form. And you'll notice that this form will vanish from this view. Okay, the reason for that is because when you go to your feedback, so if I go back to my home page and I want to go and view the feedback for all my OHS audits that have taken place, all I need to do is click on that icon again. And remember, we've got our module tabs here. The first one being a capture module, the second one being a feedback module, the third being analysis. I'm looking for the feedback. In other words, and the reason that these names have changed is because we can obviously change the naming conventions of these modules to make it more pertaining to that particular business or that particular activity itself. So I'm looking for all my audits or all my feedback in this case, so I can hit that. But when I get taken to my summary feedback or my feedback list, the very first time I get taken here, I only see unresolved forms. You can think of it as your to-do list. If I would like to see more than this, all I've got to do is hit my filter. I can scroll down to forms, and the status of the form is what I'm looking for. I don't want unresolved, I would like all forms. Just hit apply. And what you'll see is that my form comes back here, the one from today, the 27th. And what you'll notice is that this form is now changed from a yellow to a green. The reason for this is because it's obviously been resolved. You'll notice that the two ticks have also changed to a green color as well. If I'd like to know who resolved this form, at what date and what time, I can do that as well. all I've got to do is go to the action section, and I can see that Sarah resolved this form with its own reference number at this date and at this time. Okay, if that was a mistake, that's no problem. What we can do is, all you do is you just tick that again, and what will happen is the form will be unresolved and go back to its previous state. Okay, if I then just want to look at unresolved forms, you'll see I now only have the one that I've just unresolved itself. Okay, so that's just encompasses Sarah's side of this activity. What I'd like to do now is I'm going to go through to Themba's user, and I'm going to fill in the corresponding form from his side. So what happens on this side is that Themba is now, if we jump back to our PDF, Themba is the factory manager on this in this example, and Themba is the one that is responsible for making sure that the leaking pipe and that back door that's not locking, it gets fixed, and that the factory is obviously up to standard. So what he does, he notices that he has one unresolved form over here. He goes into that, can read through the details of the form itself, or look at the snapshot for that matter, just viewing exactly where this form scored badly. What he then does is once he's noted all of these issues, and he's now begun the fixes on these issues, and he's now come to the point of fixing them themselves, you'll notice that Themba has a little button up here that looks different than when Sarah was there. I'm going to go back to this page, and if you guys can bear with me, I'm going to jump between the two now. I'd like to show you how this icon exists on Themba's account, but how it does not exist on Sarah's account. As you can see, there's no icon here that is present with Themba. The reason for this is that Themba is the direct respondent for this form. Therefore, Themba gets the icon that takes him to the direct respondent form, or the responding form thereof. All that we have to do to make sure that Themba is the responding person is make sure that the email address that Themba's user has is the same email address that Themba as a contact has as well. Okay, that email address there. Keeping in mind that just because somebody is an application user does not mean that they are automatically a contact themselves. They would need to be put into the system as a contact, just making sure that you use the exact same email that they used as a user to set them up as a contact, because then what will happen is that the system will see them as the same person. There's lots of people in the world with the same names, but there's nobody in the world with the same email addresses. And if they are, the system won't let you add that in any case. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to go back to the home screen for Sarah. Okay, I'm back on this side, logged in here as Themba. Okay, now what I need to do is I'm going to click this little form, and what you'll see is that it opens up a separate tab here. We refer to this page as the .mobi. The .mobi is comprised of a lot of different aspects, from the initial form itself. So as you can see on the left-hand side here, it's the actual audit that Sarah completed, down to the cleanliness, all the issues itself, so the front door not locking, down to leaking pipe. And what happens is here, Themba, it's his job to fill out this right-hand side. So, have all the issues been solved? Let's say yes. Let's say that it was because of budget and poor planning that it occurred, and that the compliances have been met. What he can do then is sign off on this. Keeping in mind again, guys, that this entire form that you're seeing here is completely customizable on that front. Okay, just confirm my signature and then submit. Once I submit, I get taken to what we refer to as the closeout page. This is the landing page that the last thing that you'll see. So we can put things like reference numbers on here, as well as a click here to our website from this. Okay, I'm going to close this page down, and what you'll notice is that from Sarah and Themba's side, they would have got a little extra notification on this front to indicate that another form has come back in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back this side as Sarah, I'm going to click on my OHS audit, and you'll notice here that these numbers have gone up by 1 since we started. Therefore, I know that I've had another form come in. If I wanted to double check, I could always look at my notifications. And I could see from this that Temba has completed a factory audit at the Sandton factory, and that he's met all the compliance necessary. So what I can do from this then, if I want to go to my feedback, remember, I can hit there. Okay. And what you'll notice immediately is that this form is now slightly different. There's a binder and there's another form attached to it at the bottom. What this now allows us to do is keep these forms interconnected within each other, as well as have them as their own standalone item at the same time, in the sense that you'll see that this form scored 100%, where this one got 65. The reason for this is that everything that Temba has done is necessary to fix the issues. So the issues are now completely done from this side. So what Sarah can now go do is, now she's going to go check that that door is now locking, as well as that pipe is no longer leaking. What she does is she goes up here and she now resolves this form. What this will do is it will resolve the form on Temba's side as well. I'm now back this side as Temba. If I then go to this unresolved, you'll see that there'll be no forms here at all, because Sarah has resolved it on her side. Okay. One thing then that I wanted to show you guys as well was the other module down at the bottom, analytics or analysis. What this is it's just, we've got separate little options that people can use for the analytics themselves. The first one being a snapshot. Now, we have roughly touched on the snapshot already, but what this snapshot does that's different to the other one that we looked at is that other one was a snapshot of that form itself, and only that form. Where this snapshot is an overall look at the entire activity OHS audit. So if I hit snapshot from here, you'll see that it now looks very different to the last one, because they've had a total of 20 entries across this period of time, and this is the result that gets thrown out thereafter. Okay. Oh, keeping in mind, guys, you can always throw this into PDF if you'd like as well as you get the options for search filters. So you could just look at the Sandton factory, or you can benchmark Sandton against Woodmead as well. Okay. The next one down is item view. What item view is it is a particular look at one item within your snapshot view. So let's just take areas or 2 exits, and you'll see that what this does is it gives you an idea of when these items were selected. So you'll see that because we said no to the 2 exits, the only time that these have been selected was on the 4th and the 6th of June. So like I say, this is a particular look at the items within your snapshot itself. The next one down is table view. What table view does is it gives you an overall count of how many times something's been selected. So I'm going to use areas, again, the 2 exits, and it tells you, so we already knew this, but we could see that the amount of times that there's not 2 exits available is a lot higher than when there is. So what this just obviously allows you to do is just get you a total count of how many times something has been selected. Okay. The next one down is activity barometer. What this does is it gives you an idea of the total activity that is taking place within your app. That is how many forms are being sent, on what days, and the amount of forms on those days themselves. Okay. The last one on the analytics side is called time analytics. And what this does is it gives you an idea of how long things are taking to get done. So I've touched on the fact that we've got an out form and that we've got a corresponding in form. You can look at a timestamp on how long it's taking people to respond back in with their form. So in this particular example, it gives you an idea of how long it's taking the guys to fix these particular issues that are being logged in this audit. You'll see that there will be a bunch of gaps here because this is obviously a demo. It also gives you an idea of how long since you've sent the form to when that form gets resolved at the end of the day. Okay, so that's just an idea of analytics themselves. Those analytics apply across the board. As you can see, they are the same on each activity. Okay, depending on the fields or the information within those activities themselves, those graphs and analytics will obviously be more or less used from that sense, from that standpoint. Okay. Cool, guys. So that's the first activity, being the OHS audit between Sarah and Temba. What I'd like to do now is just give me 1 or 2 minutes. I'm just going to sign in as Rakesh and Mohammed, following the same principle, trying to use Google Chrome and Opera as the examples there. I'm going to use Rakesh will be replacing Sarah in this aspect, and Mohammed Temba. Give me 1 second. Okay, perfect. We signed in here. Here's another example, which is quite nice, is you will see that Mohammed on his side has 4 activities total, where Rakesh on his side only has 3. And of the ones that we're using, you'll see that he doesn't have OHS audit at all. Okay. So what happens here? Rakesh, who's the security manager, strolling around the grounds, perhaps at night or during the day, it doesn't matter. And he notices that an electric fence is working intermittently. So it's not up to standard, and the compliances are not being met. What he notices is that electric fence is dealt with by Mohammed, who is the supplier in this case. And what Mohammed needs to do is needs to tell Temba when he can come and get this, tell Rakesh when he can come and get this, this gate or this fence repaired. All you need to do for that, so this process again, like I said, I'm going to tell you whether it's a capture type. This is a capture type, aka an in-app initiator process. Again, because the initial point of information gathering is taking place within the app itself, that's why it's a capture type or an in-app initiator process. So what will happen is here, Rakesh, who has now strolled along and noticed that there's an issue with the fence, goes into security management, and you'll see that this looks very similar to what we've done so far. The way that Magnitude works, the architecture surrounding Magnitude is very similar across different processes. So you'll see that these are now the same. Exactly the same principle applies here with those last days, like I said. These modules are formed the exact same purpose as the previous one, where this is the capture module, the feedback module, the analysis module, and then draft and database reference. Like I say, these are the only 3 that are important, because these are the only 3 that can be taken or given to a particular user. Okay, so all you do is you hit new issue. You'll see that again, this has got locked to Mohammed McGregor here with Mohammed's correct email address. If I then scroll down here, and you'll see that these forms are similar, but you'll see how the forms are the same thing, except what we're doing is we're offering a different question and a different means at which to answer that, which in other words means we're accomplishing a completely different goal from that sense. Working. Okay. Let's say that it has not occurred before. How critical is this issue? Let's say it's highly critical because people can currently get through our fence. I would also like this to be fixed by Saturday. And the issue type is fencing and walls. Okay, and I can always attach a picture of my fence itself, this guy with no arm. Okay. Again, the exact same thing. What I do is I then hit submit notify. I'm now going to move over from Rakesh's user through to Mohammed's user on this side. Okay, I'm going to open up Mohammed's user. Mohammed should get a little extra notification here and should receive a bell on this side. Maybe he has already. Okay, he has already. So Rakesh has logged a new security management allocation. I can flag this if I'd like to. And what I can do then is I can then click on this notification, getting taken straight to my form itself. Here's the actual issue that Rakesh has logged. being the electric fence not working. If I'd like to show, I'm just going to show you another way of getting to this form. I'm going to go back to my home. If I click on my security management and go down to all issues, you'll see that I've got the one that was submitted just now. And again, because Mohammed is the direct respondent, he's got the responding form over here. He can click that. And what happens is here is that Mohammed, in this case, instead of once the issue is fixed, he tells them when he can come and repair the issue. So when will somebody be on site? And again, you see it's just a field on how we're asking it and how you would like them to answer it. So I will be on site tomorrow, which is then perfect for them. Time to solve, new fence, and I'm going to sign. For example, you could always upload the invoice of it, confirm, and then submit back. Okay, same exact thing. There's my reference number, 94030, website. And if I just refresh this page here, what you'll notice is that this form at the bottom will move down, and then I'll get that corresponding form with the binders in here. There you go. As you can see, I've got my binding form with the corresponding on what Mohammed has said back to Rakesh himself. If I click on the form, I can go in and view that Mohammed says that he'll be here tomorrow at 5 o'clock, and he's just going to bring a brand new fence for that. What I can do is myself, because I'm logged in here as Mohammed, I can go over here, speak to Rakesh, just send him a communication. If I go back to Rakesh's side, you'll see there I got a little extra notification, and you'll see that I've got a chat waiting for me here on security management. I can see that Rakesh has said, see you tomorrow. If I'm not sure what he's referring to, again, I can drop down my form. It's about the electric fence, and oh yes, he's bringing a brand new fence for that. Let's say that Friday has now come, and it's past 5 o'clock, so in other words, Mohammed has come and he's repaired the fence. What I then do on that front is I now need to go and resolve this form, just like we did with the previous one. I need to resolve this form so that it's removed from my to-do list from that aspect. All I've got to do, I just hit the two little ticks there at the top. In resolving it, like I say, it just removes this form from my to-do list itself. And what you'll notice is that this 30 just starts to slowly decrease down as you start to just get through your workload as you go. Okay. And back. So that's just an idea of the two capture type processes or in-app initiated processes that we've got there. The architecture that those processes follow is the same as in overall as a principle. However, as you can see, they're completely different activities and they accomplish completely different goals, where the one is a systematic audit that gets done on a regular basis and a form comes back in to say that everything is fixed. The other one is only gets filled out when something is noticed to not be working the way it should be. And a corresponding form comes back in to say that I will attend to this at a given date and time. So you can see how, just depending upon how you run the activity, how it can operate in a completely different manner from that perspective. Okay. One of the last activities that I wanted to take you guys through was the QR code or the facilities issue activity. So I'm just going to point it out here, this one on the side. So Simon, who is an employee, notices a leaking pipe in the restroom. He reports the issues to the facility manager, which is Bongani, by scanning a QR code. What happens is that then Bongani receives the report and allocates that issue to John, because she knows that John is the one that is responsible as the maintenance technician to deal with that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I will present the QR code on screen. You guys are more than welcome to scan it yourselves, and you're more than welcome to to send a report in if you'd like to as well. Just give this thing a scan. I'm just going to hold this up here for a minute. Okay. If anybody needs the QR code, you're more than welcome to just unmute yourself. Give me a shout if you'd like me to pull it back up for you. Okay. I'm just going to go grab the link for myself so that I can show it to you guys on screen. Once you've scanned that QR code, this is what you should get presented with, is this link up here, okay? Whether this is on your cell phone or on a tablet or on a desktop itself, it doesn't matter. The principle is still exactly the same, okay? So what happens here is this is a external initiated process, or what we like to call a QR/feedback type process, okay? And again, the reason for this is because this process is an initiated point of contact, or the point at which the information gathering takes place is outside of the app or externally of the app. So in other words, if I go back to my PDF here, you'll see that Simon, although he's an employee, he does not have a username and password to log into the app, but does not need one because he can just scan the code itself, okay? And you'll see that this form is very similar to what we've had so far. So I'm just going to go here and say, what is the issue? Leaking pipe in the bathroom. I say it's plumbing. There's a picture of the pipe itself. There's a bathroom picture for you. Any additional comments? And then all you've got to do from this, you just hit submit. You get presented with your reference number, exactly the same thing we've been over just now with a closeout page. What will happen on this side is that, like you'll see here, I'm just going to log in quickly as Bongi and John. You'll see Bongi just received a notification there to say that an issue has been logged. And so did John. Okay. And what you'll see from this now is that she's got facility issues currently at the moment. If I click on my notifications, you'll see that Mike Green has reported a plumbing issue. I can click on my notification and come and view it. Obviously seeing the details, perhaps this was a video of what he had uploaded. And I now know, because I'm Bongi, who is the facilities manager, and remember I need to now send this through to John to now deal with. So I'm going to go back to his Bongi here. All I've got to do is go down to my action chat, go over here, I hit my @ look for John. Please fix this ASAP. I can send that through to John. I'm going to go over to John's user now on Google Chrome. As you can see, I'm logged in here as him. Here's my notification. And I can see both the report from Mike Green as well as Bongi telling me to please fix this ASAP. If I'm not sure what she's referring to about this, I can open up my form and I can always go and look that it was the leaking pipe in the bathroom. And he has a video of it as well. Okay. What happens there then is that once John has now gone and fixed this particular issue, oops. Once John has gone to fix this particular issue, he'll go in and he can resolve this himself. Again, you'll see that's yellow because there's obviously been some chats surrounding that as well. Okay. What will then happen is this is now fixed. John can go in here and say, Bongi. You can set reminders for yourselves. You can also attach things. So that can be an attachment of, say, a PDF, a Word document in Excel, anything like that, as well as pictures and videos. We've also got resolution templates. These are predetermined text. They could be a word, as you can see, or they could be a sentence. What this allows you to do is I can now say that Bongi complete, for example. I don't need to type the word complete. I can then just send that through to her. What will happen then is then on Bongi's side, I'm going to go back to Bongi here. Bongi gets a message just to say complete. She doesn't know what this is about, so she clicks on it. She can see that it was her telling John to fix something. Oh, great, it was about the bathroom. Okay, so if he's completed it, what she can do then, give this form a 2 ticks, which resolves it at that particular time. And what you'll see is if I then go back to my facilities things, I no longer have the one from Mike Green here at the top to tell me that there's some problem with the bathroom, because that's obviously been fixed. And then if anything happens later down the line, you've obviously got a full report on what has happened there, and as well as any kind of communication that's taken place surrounding that particular issue. One thing to note as well, when you're on this page, we can also export things to Excel, making it obviously a lot easier to use the information in a Excel fashion, because you can start pulling things from rows and columns and putting them in other Excel documents. If I click this Excel button here, what that'll do is it'll pull everything that I'm looking at down here into Excel. If I would like to look at every single form, because you'll see currently I'm not seeing the form from Mike Green currently. If I would like to pull that to Excel, all I've got to do is make sure that that form is visible. And I know that that form has just been resolved, so all I've got to do is just unresolve it. I can now see this form, and now if I hit this to Excel, I'll pull all 32 reports in there with me. Okay. I wanted to show you guys as well is what we've got is geolocation. So I need to find a form that has actually got it on, because my computer does not. What happens is that when a form is captured, you can geolocate that form itself. So you'll see that if the person has got geolocation settings turned on their cell phone or on their desktop computer for that matter, you'll see that they get the option for a map. Okay, and from this now, you can see exactly where this form has been submitted from, all the way down to the finer details. Submitted right from there. If I click on the form itself, I can get taken there. But yeah, what it does is it gives you an idea. It drops a stamp when that form was clicked submit. So when that person hits submit, it drops a pin there and then. Okay. I wanted to just touch as well on the app's limitations. So because it's technology, you'll see here, because there's technology, there's obviously some limitations to things. There's a better way of doing something as well as a more tedious way of doing things as well. Just depends on what you're doing. So the first thing I'd like to just touch on is our offline mode. Okay. So we've obviously got the ability for somebody to work offline, which means they do not need to have a mobile data connection in order to capture things. There's, without a doubt, going to be limitations when you don't connect to the internet. Okay. Things like, for example, if a new user has just logged into their app on their cell phone, that information gets saved to that device's memory. If that person has just logged in for the first time and has never used any of those activities on that particular device, they will not be able to use offline mode, because no information from those activities has saved to that cell phone's device memory. So they won't be able to use that as far as a function. Okay. as well as, let's say that this was offline here. Remember, we've got our modules here at the bottom. When you're offline, you cannot access the feedback or analysis section, because what happens is that those sections are saved in the cloud. We cannot start dumping all of this feedback on somebody's cell phone, because the memory requirement for that is just unrealistic to expect anybody with a lower end phone to start doing that. So what we've done is we've allowed for the offline mode, but you do not, however, have the option to access feedback or access the analytics from that matter. You can, however, capture something new, so you can use the capture module or this new audit, and you can obviously go look at your older drafts from that matter. For obvious reasons, we do not have offline mode on the desktop, because you will have to have internet connection to open up Google Chrome or Opera in any case. So the offline options is only available with the application, so the Android or iOS download on your cell phone itself. Okay. The offline mode as well, what will happen is somebody will complete a form in offline mode. They will only have access to the last 51 contacts that they have recently acted at. And I mean that by this is the person's contacts. I just want to find one to show you guys. So you'll see here, if I hit security management, my contacts, you'll see I've got a long list of people here. However, if I'm in offline mode, it will only show your most recent 50 people, okay? As well as the geolocation is quite a big topic with clients when it comes to offline mode and geolocating, because a lot of the clients love the geolocation feature, but they've got a lot of their staff members that are running around where there's no mobile data reception. So if somebody does not have data reception and they therefore switch over to offline mode, what happens is that somebody will capture a form. That form will then get submitted. When they click submit, that form will get moved to their sync folder, okay? Your sync folder exists within your settings. It will not be on the desktop, again, because we do not have offline functionality here. It will be in your settings. I think it should be on the very top, right below your name.